You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
Hi, David here. In episode 65, if you're listening to this on 65 or you're listening to it at the beginning of 66, I drop a pretty dark and morbid joke regarding my mental health. I struggle with mental health, obviously, if that's not evident from my erratic posts and things that I do and how I am on the podcast. And I deal with it by being funny and making fun of it for myself. I don't make fun of it for other people. That's how I deal with it. We've gotten a whole bunch of people reach out asking if I'm okay. I don't know. I am. I think I'm alive. So I see a therapist weekly. I put a whole video on our Instagram, 10-minute video talking about all of this and how you can get help or help you can identify with it. And I'll also put that on our website if you don't have an Instagram, so you can check it out. But sorry to concern you guys. That's just how I deal with it and how I cope. If you're struggling with anxiety, depression, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or a combination of all of them, please feel free to reach out to me, but make sure you go see someone that you trust and possibly a therapist if you can. Thanks.
Welcome to episode 65 of the Life in Ruins podcast, where we investigate the careers of those living a life in ruins. I'm your host, Carlton Gover, and I am joined by my co-hosts, Connor Johnen and David Howe. Tonight, we continue our series, Fantastic Domesticates, and where to find them. And then for this episode, we're going to focus on old world, quote unquote, domesticated animals. So how are we doing, everybody? David, how's life been real quick?
Hang on, let me just look this up really quick.
How to define
the National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 800-273-8255. Connor, how you doing?
I didn't know that number offhand, so I think things are going
I had to
well.
Google it.
I'm doing all right. It's summer, lots of field work going on in the CRM world. Projects galore.
Oh.
Pure chaos,
Chaos.
Just pure chaos. What about you, Mr. Gover?
Just finally back in Boulder, working at the museum. It's great. Can't complain. It's nice to have a routine. I commute like a schmuck. I gotta dress nicely, wear khakis.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're working at the Denver Museum.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm waiting for Talia to show back up, but she fractured her femur tap dancing on ice next to that Tyrannosaurus Rex they got in the main lobby, I guess, is my understanding.
I was talking to my coworker Kelly the other day about how I need to stop doing a bunch of projects and saying yes to things and spreading myself so thin. And I was like, you know what? I think the next thing that happens, I'm just going to wait a day and say no. After I said that, I get a call from Carlton, and he's like, hey, I got a bunch of stuff here at the museum. I really think you should help with this. You want to be on the paper? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And then I went and had the third mental breakdown of the day in my chair this time, not in the back room. So that's my life.
You doing okay? You've been having those more and more frequently.
Yeah. I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
Can you talk about your Denver Museum stuff yet, or is it still behind closed doors? Or
I think I can. I don't think it's a secret. Got hired, as I've been joking with you two. I got, for those that you saw on the Instagram, I got specifically hired for this job because of my work at Wyoming, which I don't do anymore. I don't do Paleo-Indian bison. I just worked on sites that did Paleo-Indian bison. And so now I'm working on a Paleo-Indian bison kill called Jones Miller, which was excavated in the 70s. But but was never published. So Dennis Stanford, who we all know, just sat on it for the past 50 years and passed away. So now it needs to get done. So we're trying to look at the old manuscript, figure out what's good. And I can tell you most of it's not good, and get a new group of researchers to look at the collections and go over them with modern analysis and get it published. So that's why I reached out to both of you guys. So I get to select, I have a lot of leeway. So I get to select my dream team. So yeah, no, I'm excited. It's a really cool collection. It's one of the largest bison kill sites in North America. Back in a day, it was the oldest at 11,000. I don't know if that still stands, but it's like Bison Antiguous, like mass kill site, over 300 something individuals.
Wow. How old's Folsom?
It's a Hell Gap age site. So I think Folsom's 12,000 to like 11,000. So it's like
it's still Pleistocene, so it's old.
Yeah. So it's Hell Gap, which is interesting. But it's like I'm going through the old manuscript of all those that work there, and it's like Marcel Kornfeld in the 70s when he was a teenager, which is like hard to imagine. Like Kathy Cameron, Chuck Rear from Wyoming worked on that and produced a chapter. And it's like really cool to see all these famous archaeologists that are retiring now working at this place in the early 70s when they were little baby archaeologists. But yeah, so it's cool, and I'm looking forward to it. But long-term project that I'm just fortunate to be a part of. Once again, Forrest Gump myself into something I didn't see happening. But
is this would you call this a pre-doc as opposed to a post-doc?
I think so.
I was trying to explain it to them today what your thing is, and I was like, I guess it's like a pre-post-doc. That's really funny.
That's what it is. And like Steve Nash, who runs the museum, keeps telling me, Carlton, don't screw this up, because like he has a grant for a postdoc, and if I do well on this, then it sets me up to be, competitive. And that would be great, because I've told you guys I wanted to live in Denver and stay in Colorado at least. And if I can get a postdoc at the museum, it wouldn't uproot my life too much. And it's cool to be like, it's awesome to work at the museum. I get there at 7. I get my articles and reports, and I kind of meander around the museum when no one's there by myself, just doing knowledge. It's fun.
That's awesome.
It's a cool workspace. But shall we segue into...
Shout out Megan Grizzle for helping you get that started, because I heard that's a crazy process.
I need to call Megan Grizzle. Yeah, that used to be her project before she dipped out to Wyoming.
The great and powerful Grizz.
So yeah, I need to talk to her.
We haven't had her on. We need to have her on at some point.
Yeah, we should. Yeah. Agreed. Megan Grizzle, if you hear this, you're invited.
I guess before we swing into that, I didn't mean to like make such like heavy dark jokes before. I'm doing fine, guys. It's all good. We're good. Everything's fine here. How's the
cancel Strider campaign going?
Oh, yeah, it's going good. No t-shirts were bought, so I can't say that was doing. I have really no data to go with it. So, but yeah, he's canceled. He's in my living room currently. Canceled.
Make sure and put that on your Instagram, Twitter, whatever. Dude. Hashtag cancel Strider.
Hashtag cancel Strider.
He got mutt shamed. Mutt lives matter, guys. Come on, like you can't.
Oh, forgot about that.
What happened?
Someone was trying to tell me that like calling him a Wyoming mountain dog is promoting. Like I should use my platform better because I'm promoting backyard breeding, which is unethical, and like therefore like he's a mutt and you need to call him a mutt, and that's what he is. And I was like, I can call him whatever I want to, because you can call lemonade and iced tea a fucking Arnold Palmer, and like that's fine. So like I can call him a Wyoming mountain dog, and like do you think I just got him at like a rescue? Like he's so pretty. Like who would put that dog at a rescue? So like I got him there. Not that rescue dogs aren't pretty. It's just like Strider's like I got him as a puppy. Like I post pictures of him as a puppy. In the video in question, I saw pictures of him as a puppy. Like, what do they think? I just got him in a shoebox from stamps.com or Blue Apron. So, like,
I mean, it's not that far off. It was a trailer park in West Laramie. But.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like the best of situations to get. But like, did they want me to return him to said trailer park? Do they want me to put him down? Like, I don't know. Like, what? Like, I'm sorry, my dog doesn't fit your stereotype of what an ideal dog should be. But anyway, it's just it's weird things I never thought I'd deal with in my life that I'm now dealing with.
But that comes with such a large platform that as we've mentioned several times, and at the last episode where I was a little tipsy.
Like call me out for my view of like women, or call me out for my view of like race.
I don't know about that one. I don't know the first one.
Right, but like that's an
that's what we went with.
Well, I mean, like I'm saying, that's an anthropological thing.
What are your views of women and race, David?
We're not going to get into that.
Are you going to start that right now? Official stance.
Great, neutral, great views. But then like I have to defend my dog's like weird pedigree because I called him something. Like I'm not qualified for this. Like let's talk about like I don't know. It's just not where I thought I'd be.
I don't know. He's the most good looking of the Wyoming mountain dogs there is, in my humble opinion.
He is.
The other ones don't look like him. He's a special boy.
I don't know. I like Callie. Callie looks good for a short hair, I would say. Todd's dog. A little shorter.
Callie is pretty. She's his aunt, I think. Aunt or like cousin, her sister aunt, one of them, whatever dogs do. They look identical if you look at them next to each other.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, this was a derailment, but
So Strider is domesticated, though, right?
Yes. And what is the definition of domestication for our audience?
domestication is the human selection in an animal or plant for a desired trait to do a specific task, or really just to, for lack of a better word, like to get it to do what you want. So teosinte, like this grass seed that is now maize, was like a tiny little piece of grass, like a dandelion-sized thing, and then now it is freaking corn. The desired trait was to make something more delicious and bigger and nutritious, and they just kept growing it and growing it and growing it. But now we can also make white corn or yellow corn or like whatever the weird decorative corn is you put on your table at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, because we got to a pretty homogenous form of most domesticates in the past 50 years, and now we're trying to go back to like some of these other seeds, heirloom seeds, I think they're called, right?
Yeah, we're going to go back to the organic kind of things. Sorry, derailment.
Is it maize technically a GMO because it's genetically modified organism?
Yeah, they're all GMOs.
I say that in my lecture all the time. It's like, if you want to complain about GMOs, like return your dog to, the shelter, the mutt shelter, and never eat corn again. Broccoli is unnatural. There's no such thing as broccoli in the wild.
It's got to be lettuce. Lettuce can't be a real thing.
What does lettuce do to the ecosystem? Like, what does it contribute? Nothing.
It absorbs a lot of heavy metals.
Does it?
It does, which you should be careful of. Yeah, like if you got to be careful where you get your lettuce because you might just be eating a lot of heavy metals. Not good for you.
Oh, okay. So maybe it does suck up metals, I guess. I thought maybe it was just like
it's the metal siphon.
I don't know if it siphons, it just takes up whatever's in the ground. So if there's a lot of heavy metals in there.
You know that person from high school that is now like had really no trajectory in life, and now they're just like a self-help guru and they sell stuff and they're
still trying to be a crowd laugher,
fitness influencer. Yeah, like that's what cabbage is. They contribute nothing. Yeah. So anyway, cabbage. What is it? Like other vegetables. Like vegetables, it's like the stuff you grow in your garden is completely unnatural. Like that's not stuff you find in the wild. It's wild. I mean, we could say like a GMO in the last like 50 years or so is a much different definition, but like in terms of like a grass seed now being maize, that's a GMO. Mm-hmm. And I called a dog a GMO one time and I got yelled at. So we won't call animals GMOs.
They are, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think domesticates.
That's the official stance.
Well, like
on the dictionary definition of an organism that has been modified, yes, it would be.
Right. And more specifically, like we talked about last time, how dogs are a human technology.
I think it was Dr. Perry's dissertation, but it's definitely the chapter in that dogs book that I cited, that we put in the suggested reading. She says like dogs are a biotechnology. And like when I think of biotechnology, I think of it as like literally like the robots from Black Mirror. Mm-hmm. Like they're just like, and I said this in that like those hunting stories I posted, like it's just, you're sending a robot out to do your bidding that just has flesh and a brain. That's dogs are crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, and kind of, we talked about dogs for a whole episode. However, there's of course a whole wide range of animal domesticates, right? The next to come after dogs. So we're going to, for this episode, specifically be talking about Old World, meaning Africa, Europe, Asia, and is Australia counted in there? Or is that just Oceania? But
it depends on your interpretation of New World. If it's New World in the Columbian Exchange, Australia counts as New World. But if you're counting it as like East and West, the New World is just the Americas. I've always found that interesting.
Yeah, we'll call it New World. We all agree. Connor, do you agree with that?
I don't agree with anything we say
Perfect.
on this
podcast. 2-1. Excellent. So, goats.
So I thought I was going to say that the male was domesticated. I think before that.
The what?
Between the dog, the male, the human male.
Oh, Jesus!
Was domesticated as part of that as well.
Thank you, Connor, for another amazing contribution.
Yeah, the goat is. I personally think it's the earliest. It might be dated to be the earliest domestic animal. This is a funny thing I get too. When I put a post on TikTok about dogs being the first domestic animal, someone was like, actually, it's the goat. And I was like, can you give me a citation as to where you found that? And they're like, I just Googled it. And I Googled, what is the first domestic animal? And the first thing that comes up is goat. It's just demonstrably false. And I was like, come on. But yeah, but I think it's talking about like livestock, which isn't wrong.
Oh, okay,
like
makes,
the goat.
Yeah.
But somebody's like, I literally am saying like, I'm an archaeologist who studies ethnos, and they're like, it's a goat. It's like, get out of here. Yeah, it's the goat. And do you guys have an inclination as to, I know the answer in my head, or in my opinion, I guess, as to why the goat was the first?
So they were domesticated first or earlier. It's like they're from the Middle East, right? Do they come from Mouflons? Mouflon?
Yeah, Mouflon.
Mouflon. I have...
Or no. Ibex is goats.
Ibex.
Mouflon is sheep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why were they
Mouflon
domesticated first? Because the environment in the Middle East was better suited for domesticating goats. I don't know.
I think it's like Dr. Taylor said with horses. They originally wanted to get their milk, but also when the Pleistocene is ending and now people are getting more sedentary, especially with like the Natufians and the Levant are the first to like settle in that Epipaleolithic. They are not the Natufians aren't the ones that make goats. It's like more in like Iran and Iraq, but you have goats now. Instead of hunting them, you bring the goats to you, and now you have that biotechnology that can spook the goats into thinking they're being stalked. So now you can corral those goats and bring them more towards home. And like, I don't think without the dog, it wouldn't have been as possible. I think we would have still done it, but in those parts of the world, the dog helped. And then, because I don't know how you would figure out, like, you know what, I'm going to milk that thing in 50,000 BC. Like, why would that be your first thought? Like, I want to eat that thing first, is what I think, and you'd bring it in closer.
Could you? I would hypothesize that it's like herding, because they go in herds, right? They're large groups of goats.
Yeah, like
sheep
I believe,
and stuff like that. But I think that goes hand in hand with what you're saying. That if you have one dog, you know, your biotechnology helps you easily corral these already corrallable, herdable animals.
Yeah.
So a group of goats is a tribe.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
well, that is cool, because in the bands, tribes, kingdom, states thing, nomadic people and pastoralists are usually into tribes, and they always pastoralize goats. So that's like a tribe of goats.
Of goats. Yeah, and that's, I mean, as you said, this kind of like bio thing where you're what?
I'm just thinking in my head, like, what tribe are you from? They're like, I'm from that tribe. Anyway,
they just faint,
right? Like it's a sense of, it's a form of food security, right? If you're able to know where the food is, your ability to get said food exponentially increases. So if you can corral goats or something like that into an area where you know they're going to be there, like, dope.
Yeah. And then, you know, thinking out loud now, that's kind of where you get the milk thing from too, because then you realize rather than over hunting them and having to move to go find more goats, you corral them and literally milk them for all they're worth while they're alive, and then you kill them, but they also can reproduce, and then you have more, and then there you go. Whoa. So yeah, goats and sheep, pigs, cows, horses were like way later. Yeah, I guess we can continue to the next segment.
Yeah, we're finished milking this segment. We'll be right back with segment 2 of episode 65.
Welcome back to episode 65 of Life in Ruins podcast, aka this episode we are talking about domesticates, where to find them, why we chose them, how you see it in the archaeological record, all this kind of stuff. So we ended the last conversation, or the last segment, talking about goats, I think, and sheep. So those are, so you get dogs first, obviously, unless you're looking on Google, then goats first, and then you get goats and sheep kind of occurring at around like 10,000 years in BCE, and they're popping up in the Middle East kind of area. Yeah. So like in the cradle of Siv. The Fertile Crescent, as they sometimes refer to it as.
The Fertile Crescent / Cradle of Civilization, is that like a Western-centric thing, you think? Should we not say that?
Because there's a couple other birthplaces of what we would consider complex society or civilization, which would be.
Well, I guess we could say there's multiple cradles of civilization.
Yeah,
that's fine.
There's more than one baby of civilization, I guess.
Yeah,
I would say that calling it a fertile crescent is not PC.
No, it's a fertile crescent. It is.
It's like it's just what it is.
There is the one in Mesopotamia is the fertile crescent along the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. An environment that just has, I want to say maybe environmental determinism is the wrong word, but it's an environment that kind of pushes you to utilize it as efficiently as possible. So and so sheep and goats around 10,000 BC. Now, according to the documentary 10,000 BC, mammoths have also been domesticated by this point, but I don't see that on any of our lists here.
Yeah, it's to the it's in the eye of the viewer. Who's to say?
We're to say.
If you put a rope fence around a mammoth calf, is it domesticated? I don't know. Is it probably dangerous? Yes.
Well, I thought that's where cows came from mammoths, right?
Yeah, one could say that. I should correct myself. Well, I think I said Iran is like where goats came from, right? Yeah, it's like Afghanistan, Iran, like those like hills and stuff. It's like Western Asia, not necessarily the Fertile Crescent.
Yeah. So it's in between Syria and Iraq. So those mountain ranges where you would think of the Kurds coming from. That's where they're being domesticated. And so their purpose is for meat and milk. So protein. It's a protein base, which is different, right, from the dog domestication, which was a technology in as you laid out in the last episode, assistance in hunting, camp protection, population protection, like they are man's little best friend.
As a sidebar, in almost every archaeological setting where you find dogs, they have been eaten at a lot of times, either ceremonially or out of necessity. And like in the cool sense, like that dog was a good hunting dog. You eat it to get its power or like to keep it with you kind of thing is probably what was going on. Or they were just like, yo, there's no food. We're going to eat Strider. But it's really common. And like, I don't want to get into that like now with what goes on in the world today, but like it's more common than you'd think. But yes, it's a technology to help with us. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know, in terms of some of these other domesticates that we're going to talk about, goats are on the smaller end of that spectrum of what gets domesticated, with the exception of cats.
Like cats are the smallest. Yeah.
Cats.
Guinea pigs.
Oh yeah. Guinea pigs.
That's New World, Connor. Keep it relevant. That's next episode. Well, that's 2 episodes from now.
There's only like 6 things domesticated. We could talk about them. But like, yeah, I think the cat might have been before goats because like they came with agriculture because we had all that stuff rotting in the granaries and they were like trying to come eat it.
It is around
8,000.
Yeah, 7,500, 8,000 BC as like dogs. Not for meat primarily, which we do see people eat cats, but to control rat populations, which explode around, as David mentioned, agricultural locations, right?
Yes. And if anybody emails us to be like, actually, cats domesticated us, don't email me. It's not true.
That'd be some shit Lana would say.
Hey, email me. I'll listen. These 2 other clowns won't listen, but I will. My cats domesticated me.
Because then people will be like, cats domesticated us or dogs domesticated us. They don't say it in that voice. It's usually like, dogs domesticated us. And it's like, okay, what about 90% of the other population of the world who didn't have dogs at the time? What about them? You know, like, come on.
Yeah. And the first evidence for archaeological evidence for domestication of kitty cats is actually the island of Cyprus.
Yes.
And then, you know, everyone knows of Egypt because of the iconography. Cats are mummified. But along with a slew of other animals, right? Cats aren't the only things mummified. I mean, they friggin' mummified whole saltwater Nile River crocodiles. Can you imagine being the peasant told to like, hey, I need to go wrangle one of those out of the river.
Shoot him, Clint.
It's probably like probably a priest, and they're like, "All right, you're the new guy. You're on this one." He's like, "Sorry, I think if you guys are going to check out something cool on cats, PBS Eon's episode is great. Callie narrates it. And then...
Who narrates it?
Callie from PBS Eons.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, fossil librarian. She narrates it, but Alex Fitzpatrick from Archaeoanimals wrote it, that episode. So
really?
Shout out Archaeoanimals, yeah.
Awesome.
Or she wrote the dog one. I don't know if she wrote... I think she wrote that one too.
I thought you did the dog one.
I was just script consultant.
Oh.
But yeah. They were just like, hey, is this all good? And I was like, yes. Literally the propaganda czar. For PBS. They were like, is this cool with you? And I was like, yeah.
Is there a cat account in archaeology that compares to ethnosinology?
Ethnofelinology? There is not, but I have bought the domain name. So
can we just make it as a prank account? As like a dump account?
I should get it to like a redirect notice, and it just says no cats, and then it takes you to ethnosociology. All right, I'm doing it. Writing that down right now.
You should make the Instagram, and all it is just like crappy cat memes. And like other places that domesticate cats, like I think, is it Taiwan or Thailand? It's Thailand, right? Where the Siamese cats come from, which I guess is Siam because I'm an idiot. It's in the name.
Well, it's probably just a breed, right?
Yeah, they train them to be like guard cats.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Was my understanding. And that might just be something I picked up from a kid without verifying. Like, the reason why Mr. Rogers has long sleeve sweaters is because he has a bunch of Navy SEAL tattoos on his arm. Believe that for a long time. So yeah, let me fact check that. Siamese cats as guard cats. Yes. Okay. That is legit. They have some of the strongest protective instincts among all cats. Yes, they are. They're guard cats. That's why they were selectively bred.
People really went crazy with this domestication thing.
Yeah.
Like chickens, guinea pigs, ducks, silkworms. Also in the past.
Yeah.
It's like
that counts too. And did you guys know, I learned this on TikTok a couple weeks ago, and I had to, I fact check things on TikTok myself. I don't just take it at face value like most people do. What I'm saying, you should do that. Hint, hint. You have to boil silkworms to get them out of the cocoons. So
really?
Yeah, silk is not vegan because you have to you take sacks of silkworm cocoons and just straight up boil them in a vat. And then it's the only way to kill the silkworms in there without crushing it. And then you can peel open the cocoon, and then you can unspool the silk thing, and it's a continuous strand. I had no idea it was that much of a process, and it's a huge artisan thing in ancient China. It's really fascinating. Yeah.
Gotcha. So we have, just to recap, sheep 10,000 years ago, pig 8,000 years ago in the Middle East and possibly China, cattle in the Middle East 8,000 years ago, zebu cattle, which are another domesticate, and was first.
I think. Yeah.
It's in Pakistan.
Is it?
Yeah, 6,000 years ago. That's what I first thought. Horses around 6,000 years ago, although the DNA of domestic horses is very diverse, which suggests that they may have been domesticated in more than one place. And all these are happening in the Middle East. And this is kind of why I think this is part of Jared Diamond's argument, right? The whole orientation of the old world versus the new world, and that all these domesticates are happening at a mid-equatorial latitude. And so because it's easier to move east and west from the Middle East into China or into Northern Africa or Southern Europe, that it's easier to relocate these animals because the climate is pretty similar along that latitude. Mm-hmm. So it helps with the whole spread of domestication really rapidly, right? Whereas llamas, which we'll get into next episode, domesticated in a mountainous climate, don't do really hot in the basin of Mexico.
Nice pun.
What animal is that?
Llamas, whatever.
Right.
Tui always called him llamas. So that's where I picked it up.
Yeah, I think it is.
The double L is
yeah.
But here's the thing. It's a slippery slope when you you pronounce some foreign words correctly and then others not. Because if I want to say llama, then I also have to go around being mozzarella. When I want to say mozzarella cheese. And I'm not going to do that. And somebody was it's pierogi. And I was I'm not going to say it that way. I'm going to say pierogi because I don't want to be a jerk. I don't know.
That is a very good point.
It's a rant. Yeah. So
Well,
the cat. Oh, what's up?
I was going to say the easy travel across East West and Europe and America, in Europe, Africa, and all that stuff is, promotes information flow as well. If it's easy to move animals, it's easy to move information across those things. Like, it's hard. How would you tell someone you domesticated something in Florida, say the Florida man? You domesticated Florida man in Florida. How would you ultimately spread that information down to, it's a journey to get to the Andes or other places like that, even like word to mouth or anything like that.
Yeah, because like you have to go through like the Everglades, and you're like, you know what, like this is like, we'll just have this thing here. Like, they don't need to know.
Yeah, this isn't important.
Like, you gotta go through Louisiana, and you're like, no. But then like overseas, like you're in Afghanistan, you're like, I want to get out of here. I'm parched. You're like, I want to go show everyone else like what we got.
They're forgetting a couple on that.
The aurochs is what cows are, but aurochs are extinct now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the wild forms of these have gone extinct. Like, we had that one. Like, I think there are some wild horses, but like there's no wild horses in the Americas. They're feral horses.
Yeah, they were brought back.
Yeah,
Well, they're feral, and now like I think, like I don't know when feral becomes wild, but yeah, I think they're a released population.
We forgot that website doesn't have donkeys, so the donkeys are ancestrally from the wild African ass, Equus africanus,
the Mediterranean, I think. Which is why
the first evidence as 3 donkey skeletons in the first dynasty tomb at Tarkin in Egypt, circa 2850 BC. Yeah.
Oh,
That's the first.
They're from like Mediterranean islands, which is why they're like so speciated, small equids.
Wild African ass. When is the camel domesticated?
Shows how much.
Have you ever had camel's milk?
It probably happened multiple times with multiple types.
It's thick.
I have not had camel's milk. No.
It's
camel, another new world animal that evolved there that now lives in the old world, and we know it as that. And they're evolved for the Arctic, like to live up in the high Arctic, in like the mountains, which is why they like can store all that fat for like winters and whatnot, and can go without water for a while because it's frozen.
900 BC.
The camel?
Camel. Yeah, that's pretty late compared to everything else.
I got 4,000 on Wikipedia, but I'll double check that.
Yep.
Dromedary.
Hold on.
There's probably a better source for all this stuff, but I wasn't prepared.
It says 12th down to 10th century. This isn't it happened around that time, but you can see domestic camels in the Black Obelisk of Shalmaneser III, which you can find conveniently, not in Egypt. Where do you think you can find this obelisk from Egypt?
London.
Yeah, British
on
Museum.
An island. Island up north.
I guess we shouldn't get too bogged down with the dates and like what, because there's endless amounts of like bunnies are domesticated too, but like the point of these things, right? Because I think it's all for like milk and meat in the beginning, and then the hides, and then you have like, you don't have to go hunt a bison now to like get hides, like it's all right there.
Yeah.
And then sheep's wool, they were probably like, oh man, we could, because you've hunted the animal before, the wool is cool and like you can use it, so then you want to make that happen. And then like the camel, like did they want to ride it, or they were just like, we could probably get a lot of cool stuff up on that hump and use it to carry things.
Yeah, and it's so you're making life easier. I mean, that's the whole point, and we're really getting into like the Neolithic. You don't have to go and find things out in the wild. You can have them right there. They won't necessarily bite you or totally F you up. I mean, they can, and then people want to come and steal it. And
it was essentially lockdown for them. This is COVID, and they got DoorDash and brought the animals to them.
I think this is a T-shirt idea. Yeah, domestication, Neolithic DoorDash.
All the domestic animals, but it's like prices on a menu.
Absolutely, and then this leads to warfare, and this is why the Neolithic sucks. Hashtag Stefan Milo, come and steal your donkeys. So yeah, I mean it's interesting, right? Because it's clearly nothing else. No other. I mean, we'll get into flora later, which will be, I'm sure, just a gripping episode. Just an
we just lost like a tenth of our audience who are super into domesticated plants.
Get who?
Candy Hollenbach.
I don't know that one.
UT. We met her
candy.
at a party one time. It was in DC. You probably don't recall it. I know for a fact you don't, based on the state we're in. Now that I mentioned it out loud, but yeah, so you did meet her.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Was she with Ella?
She was with Stephanie. That was like with my UT family.
Oh, yeah. I was a little browned out, but I can see. I could recognize her.
Anyway, yeah, she's a paleoethnobotanist, which is like someone who reconstructs ancient plant remains at a site.
Sweet.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess like in the next segment, we'll go more in depth about like the different animals that were like why they were used and whatnot. And
some drawbacks to domestication that we still suffer from today.
Yeah. I'll start the next segment off with this thought about dogs.
Okay, sweet. And so stay tuned. All right, we're back with episode 65 of Life in Ruins podcast. David, drop us that sweet, sweet dog thought.
Neolithic, right? So dog kennels and kennel masters and stuff. So like in the Neolithic, you start getting specialized, like in human jobs, right? So you have farmers, you have tanners, you have cobblers, and then like I know for a fact in Tenochtitlan there was like stonesmiths, like because they didn't have blacksmiths, they just had someone who worked with obsidian all day, and you were like, hey, I need this, and he's like, gotcha, fam. They made you some sweet like obliques, but that's not the word. What are the cool obsidian things? Eccentrics.
Quill. Oh,
eccentrics. Anyway,
that's the sword.
Maquaddles? Anyway, like
I don't know what I said.
Like, sorry. Anyway, so you start getting specialized jobs, right? And then you get like the goat guy, and then you got your cow guy, and you got your the person who like what do you call a sheep shearer dude, like the guy like Jim. He is the sheep guy, but you also now have like a kennel master who raises the dogs, and like in a lot of indigenous societies, like the women raise the dogs like along with the children, and then they give the dogs to like the male hunters, at least in like Arctic and like subarctic cultures, that's a thing, and in plains cultures that seems to happen too. So like maybe that happened in the Neolithic as well. Can't say for sure, but there's somebody that does that, and then you have somebody who's specializing in that, and then depending on what you need the dogs for, is it herding goats, herding sheep, chasing down horses for their milk, chasing camels, or like guarding the sheep, guarding stuff.
For riding.
For riding, yeah. For dogs for riding, yeah. You have somebody now breeding that. So that's where you start to see like the Saluki and the Greyhound and stuff in Egypt, and like specialized dogs. Because someone always inevitably asks me like, when does that start happening? And like before that, it's just some like dingo like dog that at least as I understand it. But yeah, so now you have, to segue into what we're talking about, you now have specialized people to do these like domesticating tasks, or like at least being the farmer or the goat farmer, or like the pastor, the shepherd. There you go. Yeah. So much so that people revered shepherds so much that the Judeo-Christian God is apparently a shepherd. So, seems to be a good task. I personally think shepherding is kind of boring, but help me out here, guys. Let's I
don't know what to say that isn't going to be offensive to Judeo-Christian people. I'm trying to refrain myself because I don't know where to go with my Lord is my shepherd.
I just say dog is my shepherd, but capitalize the G, and I'm dyslexic, so it plays.
That's clever.
Excellent.
That's clever.
So we're getting a lot of these benefits from domesticated animals, but there are some drawbacks from being in and around animals, their blood, their feces, and enclosed environments, which isn't so hot for humans. And we still deal with those early, I guess they're not mishaps, because it wasn't like they knew what was going on, but zoonotic diseases are a huge primary factor when it comes to domestication, or a byproduct of that. Mm-hmm. Smallpox, a lot of the poxes.
So I think Diamond proposes, and like probably other people before him for sure that he was stealing it from and not citing, that you get smallpox from those animals. But when I wrote a paper in Bioanth on like dog zoonotic diseases, and I was talking about like domestic animal ones, Jim Ahern pointed out that there's like new articles recently. That was what, 2015? Jesus, that was 2015. That was 2014.
Yeah, that's 2014. God.
That it's possibly humans gave those things to the animals, and then it like vectored in them, gestated, and got worse and came back to us. And I was like, oh, that's wild. We might want to confirm that. But either way, The animals are what's making it worse.
Yeah, and there's some research to suggest that at least in 2014, University of Liverpool published a paper suggesting that like it helps mutate and make virus and diseases worse. So because we're passing these things between us and animals back and forth, and they have slightly different DNA, slightly different body systems and things like that, it allows for different mutations to kind of occur in these animals. And then they ultimately pass those mutations back to us and back and forth like this. So it's just this gross exchange of virus and disease that makes the, domesticates and the agricultural revolution just the best thing in the world.
Yeah, and it's like interesting to see the relationship between the number of shared diseases and parasites with humans and domesticated animals. We share the most number of diseases with dogs, least with camel. With shared parasites, it's ungulates, and when you combine the two, it's dogs. I don't know what a lagomorph is. What is a lagomorph?
Rabbits.
Oh, they're on there.
Yeah, they're not rodents. They're lagomorphs.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's in the rodent family apparently, but like hares, rabbits, chinchillas.
What is a rabbit? Is that a suid?
Or a chinchilla's a rat. Sorry, a suid.
I don't know what a suid is.
I don't know.
Interesting. And you get, especially when it comes to parasites, because it's not even just diseases, but like Black Death comes from fleas.
They're eating rats, right?
So that's an interesting. People for a long time believed it's rats, and it actually might be gerbils. That gerbils kicked it off.
Shout out Richard Gere.
It might have, and it comes, and more specifically, it might come from the bubonic plague. Really comes from a form of woodchuck or something like that in the Middle East. And this is based on like the death rates and those fleas. And this comes from and this is, I guess, anthropological. Those fleas and those woodchucks interacted with gerbils, rats, and all these other things from the Mongolian hordes. As animals are being driven out, they're interacting and fleeing the Mongol hordes. So it's really those fleas. And medieval Europe wasn't the cleanest of places.
I think the question we need to ask is, how much bubonic plague could a woodchuck bubonic plague if a woodchuck could bubonic plague?
Apparently a couple million people.
That's the thing.
Like a third of Europe, apparently.
If they'd only wash their hands, like, come on. Did I tell you guys? I was doing a live stream on TikTok with my cave back here, and I was like, all right, guys, what should I paint? What kind of animal should I paint here in this empty space? And somebody, it was like goat, mammoth, tiger, and someone said the COVID bat. And I had to keep my composure because there's family members and or children and families that follow my TikTok, and I was like, okay, that's really funny. Anyway, but yeah, zoonotic diseases are they're a problem, and a point that I was going to say before, we have cars now. We never really saw the heyday of in literal sense horses all over the place with hay. And just
crap everywhere.
That's a good pun. That's a good pun.
They had to have you see them in New York when there's horses walking around that's debatably unethical. The horse carriages still I don't know, whatever. But
apparently Philadelphia has a huge inner city cowboy subculture that's just not talked about.
What?
Yeah, it comes from because it was primarily poor people of African American descent who were the carriage drivers and caretakers of the horses. Huh. And as the automobile began to replace horses, the horses nowhere to go. So there's these districts within Philadelphia and other major eastern cities where there are literal pastures, and they have a cowboy culture that's intrinsically African American that dates back, a century or two.
That's crazy.
There's a movie on it on Netflix that's what started it. It's based on it, and they use actual inner city cowboys. It's a really good movie, and it blew my mind that was a part of Philly and other East Coast cities I never knew about. And of course, with the gentrification of inner cities, people are trying to get rid of those. And it'd be really sad to watch that go, especially since I just found out about it.
Right. I mean, with them then too, and horses when they were, in the heyday, there's just all over the streets. And like like the ones in New York, they have these little things that catch the poop behind them. And like there were people out there that had to just clean dung all day. Like that was their name or their job. And like that's in a big city like New York and London. And like back then you're living in like a wattle and daub hut and you're like, I wonder how much flax I'm to eat today, Lord. And like there's a goat that's just like on your face. And like, oh, that's smallpox. I guess, I got 2 weeks left. Better write my will.
Well, and that stuff, just having that around it seeps into the water systems. It seeps into, every aspect of your life, essentially,
Yeah. It ties in really well. Like this all culminates in the Black Death, like how poorly health and human standards had gotten in the medieval ages. And a lot of it's the byproduct of domestication in cities where they're just not clean places. And
apparently the buboes that like grow in you, like the big like boils, like the first two that grow are in the lymph nodes or like the glands that are in like your crotch, like in between your thighs. And like that starts to feel like swollen, and then like the rest of your body gets like that just sounds miserable. So you're like one day you're like, oh, my groin hurts. All right, well, whoops. Guess I shouldn't have eaten that rat. Like whatever they ate or whatever. But yeah, it's just none of that sounds good to me. Like we have Tylenol, and sometimes I'm like, man, I had a headache. Like Tylenol, it's in the pantry. I don't want to walk all over there. I'll just deal with my headache and lay on the couch and stare at the ceiling for 6 hours. And like now, like we could just take that. And like back then, they're like dying of fevers like daily. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say that. But also like modern domestication and modern meat farming and these big pharma industries also makes it worse for us because diseases spread even crazy quicker through these close farmed animals and whatnot. So that stuff can spread even at, I think at a higher rate, whereas you're not getting bubos in, San Francisco at that time, but you could literally sell cows meat in San Francisco to London. And it could be there within the same day and have some sort of awful vector disease in there.
It's like, I mean, that's the byproduct of industrialization of agriculture and these closed systems that you're talking about. It takes one bad crop of grain to infect like 50 head of cattle that gets spread all over the states. And then they have to shut all of those shipments down. Like that happens every now and then. Like we're about in the time of like, hey, there's a recall on lettuce again.
What is that? Like that, like E. coli or something. It's like
the Peter Pan peanut butter alert. Remember that one?
Yeah.
Oh, there was one of those.
Yeah, it was like when we were kids. There was a whole thing.
It like destroyed that company. Like they have not recovered from that.
We're a Skippy and Jif family, so we were good. But like,
amen.
Yeah, I guess where were we going with it? We have to talk about the animals.
People that dip their fingers into peanut butter should be shot and charged in an international court. I just want to. That's my hot take for today.
That's Carlton's hot take.
You know what I'm talking about? Where they take their little chimpanzee finger and dip it in the peanut butter and then put it in their mouth, and with their slobbery, gross peanut butter finger go back in like an eye for a larva.
Dude, I agree. It's preposterous. Like, don't do this.
It should be an international crime. They should go to The Hague and be tried.
But peanuts, another. What's up, Connor?
I was gonna say, I think that's a little much, but whatever.
It is a little much. Maybe not like capital punishment, but like a flogging or two. But yeah, peanuts are a
have some class. Don't do that. Use a spoon.
Cat of nine. Let's just kill Harlem, dude. Like, come on. Death by llamas. It'd be fitting for the torture with peanuts, but you just have to stare at a bunch of llamas and they're just hideous, so you just die. Anyway, peanuts are from the Andes.
Piss off, dude. Piss off.
Llamas are camels. They're camelids. They are the last remaining camelids with the guanacos and alpacas in the Americas, because all the other camels had the good sense to be like, you know what? There's a lot more land and cool stuff in the old world. Let's head there. And then llamas were in the mountains and came down one day and they're like, what's up, guys? Guys?
Okay.
Like the dinosaurs in Noah's Ark that forgot the invitation.
I got beef. What dromedary camels that go across like the Sahara Desert, that's so much better than living in the Andes and living in the rainforests of
I think llamas had it good, dude. They're just ugly.
But you were just saying that all the camels pieced out because they thought it was better. They had a better deal in Africa going across the Sahara Desert and the Fertile Crescent.
Now that you've played the tape, I didn't realize I said that, and I disagree with myself.
Have you ever seen how terrifying a newborn llama looks? Like, look up newborn llama.
Are you scared of llamas?
Like, fresh out of the womb.
Are you scared of llamas?
They look terrifying.
Newborn.
I'm not scared of them. I'm just saying, like, newborn llamas.
Oh my God.
Okay. I gotta look.
Oh.
They're like the least intimidating animal.
Yeah, but look, when they're newborn, they look like a freak.
It looks like when you have like a cotton ball that falls in the toilet bowl and you have to like fish it out to throw it out. Like, it's that.
They have demon eyes. They have straight demon eyes.
They do. Hang on, we're getting sidetracked. I think, yes, I contradicted myself. Like, camels were like, let's bail. But the llamas, they came out of the Andes and were cool. You got llamas there. The turkey was domesticated in Mexico and the southeast or southwest of the United States, or the Americas at the time. The guinea pig from South America as well, and then the Muscovy duck. I don't know where exactly that was domesticated, but it was.
Macaws.
Were they domesticated?
I think so.
Or just like caught and tamed? All right, yeah. So
we can do that next episode if we want to start with like other like flora. Because we could talk about how, like, flora, fauna, and like how different animals like shaped civilizations and stuff. Yeah, because I think it is important. Like, there's just not that many domesticates in the New World. They do exist, but not enough to make like a whole episode.
Yeah,
because they're not pack animals. Like, something we didn't talk about this episode. Like, a lot of human technology surrounds how to make animals more efficient, and that's how you get pack animals, like the ring collar, to better farm. And there's all these dualities and technology specific for agriculture and domestication that you don't largely see in the old world. That's not to say it's better or worse, but
yeah, the Mayans had it pretty bad. They were like the guys like moving the blocks of stone with lime on it. They were like, hey, can we like just get some dogs or something to like pull this for us? And they're like, nope. Just whipped them, and they like had to move all of it. Like, at the end of this, you get sacrificed too. How's that sound? And they were like, at least it's relief. But they didn't have cows or mammoths to pull stones up. The pyramid. Mm-hmm. Shout out 10,000 BC, brought it back.
They had aliens though, so
they did. What I guess? How should we end this? What's a poignant note? We talked about animals getting. The domestic. I know we didn't talk about all of them, guys. Like, don't email us and be like, "Hey, you didn't mention this or that." But like, also email us, tell us we didn't get this or that. We'd like to know.
Yeah, we've got.
Well, the skunk.
Skunks were not domesticated.
Yes, they are.
What?
North America, domestic striped skunk.
Someone was like, you know what? We got to fix this. Just like gathered them up. We're going to breed these and release them back.
I really like the smell.
So a lot of the articles that we drew information on today, you can find them in the description. A couple of these you might need access to that go more in depth than what we have. So if you're interested in this, you need some citations, they're down there. And yeah.
Reach out to us, email us, buy some merch. Like us on iTunes, review us, all the things that we keep asking you.
And if you have ideas for like shirts or merch, email us.
If you have like ideas for guests too, let us know.
We appreciate it. Rate and review us.
If you want to do this podcast and replace us because we suck at our job, please let us know.
You should also click the link to our OnlyFans that is on our Instagram link.
It's on our link tree.
We do have an OnlyFans.
You should end it there.
Yep, and that's been episode 65. Go check out OnlyFans. Our OnlyFans.
I know they're gonna find a dog at LaBrelle now, and I'm gonna have to take tasteful woodland nudes.
Thanks for listening to A Life in Ruins podcast.
You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at A Life in Ruins Podcast, and you can also email us at alifeinruinspodcast@gmail.com.
And remember, make sure to bring your archaeologists in from the cold and feed them beer. Guess who I saw today?
Who?
Everyone I looked at.
God.
This episode was produced by Chris Webster from his RV Traveling America, Tristan Boyle in Scotland, and the Archaeology Podcast Network, and was edited by Chris Webster.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.archpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.